be honest for a second. Are the graphs you see every single day, scrolling through your social media feed or watching the evening news, actually lying to you?
Spoiler alert, yeah, they kind of are. It's actually a massive real-life problem. Bad data visualizations trick us constantly. I mean, they can make painfully slow growth look like an overnight explosion, or completely hide massive, catastrophic drops in revenue. But here's the good news. By understanding exactly how these mathematical visuals are built from the ground up, we can see right through the deception.
So here is my promise to you. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand the core concepts behind continuous and discrete data visualizations. You'll know the actual math and formulas used to build them. And most importantly, you'll know exactly how to apply this knowledge to spot graphical fraud out in the wild.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Mastering the Histogram, or as I like to call it, buckets for your data.
Imagine you're staring at a massive data set. Trying to make sense of a giant spreadsheet of hundreds of numbers is basically impossible, right? To make this simple, think of a histogram as a series of sorting buckets. You're taking a chaotic, messy pile of numbers and throwing them into neatly organized buckets. The horizontal axis shows what you're measuring, like test scores or people's heights. And the vertical axis? That shows the frequency, which is literally just the raw count of how many items landed in that specific bucket, or the relative frequency.
Let's look at the actual math behind that. If you want to find the relative frequency, let's call it RF, you use a super straightforward formula. You simply take the frequency of an observed value, that's F, just the number of times an answer occurs, and you divide it by N, which is the total number of data values in your entire sample.
Let's make this easier with a real-life example. Imagine you're teaching an English class with exactly 40 students. That 40 is your total N. Now, let's say 3 of those students absolutely crush it and score a top grade of 90 to 100%. Your frequency, F, is 3. You divide 3 by 40 and you get 0.075. So your relative frequency bucket for those top scores, it sits at exactly 7.5%. Now that we understand the basic idea, let's actually build one from scratch. First, you choose your number of bars, or classes. Usually you want to keep this between 5 and 15 so the graph stays nice and clear. Next, you pick a convenient starting point. And hey, this is absolutely crucial. Your starting point should be 1 decimal place more precise than your data, just to ensure nothing falls exactly on the edge. Finally, to find the width of each bucket, you take your ending value, subtract your starting value, and divide that whole range by your chosen number of bars. Easy, right? But hold on. Here is a quick checkpoint. You've got to adjust those starting points slightly depending on the type of data you're working with. For instance, are you measuring continuous data? Think of a semi-professional soccer player's exact height measured down to the half-inch. Or are you using discrete data, like counting the exact number of whole books a college student buys? If you're dealing with discrete whole numbers, you might actually subtract 0.5 to set your starting boundary. That way, your whole numbers sit dead center, right in the middle of your visual bars.
Now, you might be wondering, and this is a really common student question, what happens if a data point falls exactly on the boundary line between 2 buckets? Which one does it go into? Well, the standard statistical rule is that a value is counted in a class interval if it falls on the left boundary, but it is not counted if it falls on the right boundary. Basically, it just bumps right up to the next bucket on the right.
And this brilliantly illustrates what the final product actually looks like. Notice how the bars are contiguous? They're physically touching each other. This adjoining layout gives us an immediate, powerful visual picture of how the numerical data is spread out across the entire spectrum. You can instantly spot the shape, the center, and the spread. It's like a giant puzzle suddenly making perfect sense.
Moving right along to Section 2, Comparing with Frequency Polygons. It's time to connect the dots.
Now, this tool is kind of analogous to a standard line graph, but it's got a secret superpower. The true power of a frequency polygon isn't just plotting a single jagged line of calculus test scores. No way. The magic happens because you can overlay multiple polygons on top of each other on the exact same axes. You can instantly, visually compare distributions. For example, you could plot a class's final test scores against their overall numeric final grades to see exactly where the 2 datasets split apart.
Okay, Section 3, Tracking Trends Over Time. Let's talk about the time series graph.
What if your data isn't just an assortment of random test scores? What if you're looking at chronological events mapped out over a month, a year, or even a whole decade? This is where we use paired data. Think about pairing a specific year with a specific amount of CO2 emissions for that exact year. We take those pairs and impose a strict chronological order on our standard Cartesian coordinate system.
Time always marches forward on the horizontal axis, while our measured variable shifts up and down on the vertical axis.
By connecting these chronologically ordered points with straight lines, something amazing happens. Features and trends that were completely hidden inside a dense, honestly boring table of numbers suddenly jump right out at you. You can literally see the trajectory of history unfolding.
Which brings us to Section 4, Spotting Misleading Statistics, or How Not to Lie.
So, how can you use all this mathematical knowledge to spot a visual designed to distract or confuse you? Well, as Darrell Huff pointed out in his famous book, How to Lie with Statistics, which, by the way, sold over 1.5 million copies, the purposeful manipulation of these very graphs is an all-too-common fraud. And honestly, even if it's not purposeful fraud, just lazy formatting leaves the exact same misleading impression.
Spotting these lies means you need to look out for specific tricks. For example, someone might purposely vary the width of their histogram bars. Why would they do that? Because visually, a wider bar takes up more area, which totally tricks your brain into thinking it has a higher probability of occurrence, which is completely false. Or they might set two pie charts side by side to compare yearly revenue, completely ignoring the fact that the total revenue actually changed between those years. That makes the fixed size of the pie totally meaningless. They might also measure variables in tiny units like pennies instead of thousands of dollars to hide massive drops. Or they might shrink the time axis on a time series graph to make slow, steady portfolio growth look like a dramatic, volatile spike.
Wait, hold up. This is a crucial retention moment. If you remember absolutely nothing else from today, remember this. Always look at the origin point of the graph. If the vertical axis does not begin at 0, 0, it is almost a guarantee that the visual has been manipulated. They do this to artificially smooth out a drop or accentuate one just to trick your eye. Always check the axes first.
All right, Section 5, Summary and Final Thoughts. Let's talk about becoming a truly critical viewer. We've covered a lot of ground. You now know exactly how to calculate relative frequency and construct histograms with precise boundaries and proper bin widths. You know how frequency polygons allow us to overlay and compare complex data distributions, and you understand how time series graphs map chronological trends and exactly how those very structures can be twisted to deceive you. With your new masterclass understanding of how these visualizations are mathematically built, you are officially a highly critical viewer. So, I want to leave you with a final thought. The very next time you see a dramatic, alarming chart on the evening news or while scrolling through your social media feed, what manipulative graphical trick will you check for first? Keep that question in the back of your mind and join us in the next explainer where we're going to dive into measuring the exact center of our datasets.